Hello, everybody. It is your Uncle Fish back again for School of Fish Art Stream. J-Man wants a Gatling gun on the end of his tail. Oh my goodness. J-Man says the tail's where you put all the heavy artillery. Damn. Said he used to have a howitzer on the end of his tail. Hello, good morning, welcome back. It has been a fat minute since we've been here on the Thursday Patreon-only version of School of Fish, but I, of course, am your Uncle Fish. Glad to be back at it again. I've missed seeing everybody. It was a hectic couple of weeks with all the traveling and seeing the grandbabies and the getting six and the finishing the books and the whatnots and the what have you. What's up, Katie? Good to see you. Glad you're here from Scotland. So it is good to be back. Finally got caught up on work. Finally got things finished. Got the second issue of The Mighty Caw finished. I'm just finishing up the last couple little bits of edits on it. Good morning, PJ. Glad you're here, man. Got the last edits done on the second issue of The Mighty Caw. And I've already sent my proof copy to the printer so that I can look it over and see how it's looking. And it'll be ready to go out to all the Patreon backers at the end of the month. And got the next special book that I've done. I just put it together, got finished putting it together yesterday, which is right now going to be called Fish Tales, which is going to give me a place to put all the bits of stories that I've been wanting to tell and give me a place to do little short stories in different fields. And some of them will be other things going on in Green Zone, and some of them may be other things going on in Cause World, and some of them be just other stories that I've been wanting to tell, have an opportunity to play in some different sandboxes. And I figured that would give me one cool place to do that. And I'm hoping down the road to be able to hand some of these stories off to some other artists to work on, so I can tell the stories quicker and have some other people get opportunities to work on awesome stuff. This morning, we have got a special guest on with us today, one of my favorite young up-and-coming artists in the indie comics world. He happens to be my own personal flesh and blood son, Barely Art from Instagram and TikTok. You should absolutely be following him on social media, because when he posts awesome stuff. Welcome to the show, Bear. It is good to have you, my beloved son, my doppelganger, as it were.
Pretty much.
Bear is unique in all of my children to be the only one that actually has my genetic material. So he is like a walking clone of me, except all the length in his hair is still up top like mine used to be, instead of on the face. But he'll get there, in time. PJ says, "What's up, Bear?" Anyway, Bear is an up-and-coming digital artist. He has been using Clip Studio for a while now. He is actually working on a short story for me for the Green Zone trade that'll be coming out with issue 4 of Green Zone, showing some of the other stuff that goes on in the Green Zone world and giving us a little bit more insight to what alpha is that's been hinted at in the books and all of that stuff. And I'm really excited for the story that he's working on because it looks freaking amazing. And it's been coming up in our conversations about it that there was lots of little things about Clip Studio that he still had some questions about. And I know other people like Kyron, I've talked to several times, he's been using Clip Studio for a long time to make a living doing comics, and still has things that sometimes he hasn't had to mess with yet, or hasn't taken the time to figure out. And there's so many cool tips and tricks and stuff that are such time savers and things like that. So I thought we would take some time to just talk through some stuff and let Bear ask some questions about things that he's been wondering about in Clip Studio, and we can talk through some of that stuff. So how are you doing this morning, Bear?
I'm hanging in there. Like I said, I got up not too long ago, so I'm a little bit sleepy, but we'll figure it out. Okay.
Oh, Katie's got some messed up internet because it's really windy over there. Man, I feel you. It's the thing you don't think about when you're dealing with people all around the world. Like my flatter I will send her files sometimes and then not hear from her for a couple days. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, you're usually so fast. And she's like, oh, yeah, my bad. It was a monsoon here in the Philippines. And like the internet got knocked out for 3 days. And I'm like, oh, my, I didn't even think about that. Because, like, you know, unless a squirrel hits a power line or something around here, it's not usually that big of a problem. So, Bear, you've been working on this short story for Green Zone, which is coming out amazing. What have been some of the fun things that you've done and some of the hard things that you've been challenged with in it?
I don't know. I think the whole project has shown me a lot of where my like blind spots are as far as art goes. Yeah, there's a lot of little things that you think you know how to draw, but then when you actually have to draw them a bunch of times, you realize that maybe you're not as well versed in that as you thought. Like,
Yeah,
like backgrounds, crowds, just in general, like interior, exterior scenes, um, people interacting in the same space and like looking like they actually do. There's been a lot of challenging aspects of it. I have been using it as, I mean, it's a great learning tool because you're never going to learn how to do that stuff if you're not doing it. But yeah, it's been challenging, but I've been enjoying it. It's been fun.
that's the thing. Like, it's so easy to avoid doing the things we don't want to do when we're just doing like pinups and character drawings and
Oh
things
yeah,
like
it's so
that.
easy to be like, oh yeah, I know how to do that until you have to actually do that. Maybe
Yeah.
you don't know how to do it.
And like, drawing flat buildings like far in the distance is different than drawing them in 3D perspective or 3-point
And
perspective.
like having to draw the same
like-
road and street like from different angles.
And it has to look like the same one. Like I can draw a street with buildings, but getting it to look like the same buildings when we turn and oh, that's this building.
Right.
Like that took a whole learning curve for me.
Mhm.
Oh goodness. Katie says we've been having rain in biblical proportions in Scotland lately too. It's forecast for 120 millimeters of rain. I have no idea how big that is. Like, you might as well be telling me the rain in stones or something. I don't know. It's surprising how much we use the metric system over here and things we don't think about, like 2 liters and sodas and all kinds of different things that we use the metric system in. But like, I know millimeters are really tiny, but like, how much 120? Okay, PJ tells me it's over 4.5 inches. That I understand, and and I know roughly how long a meter is because of yardsticks and meter sticks about the same length. But okay, that's cool. But yeah, like you were saying, I mean, until you really get challenged with having to do all of this stuff regularly, like it's really easy to avoid the things that we don't like to do. And that's why I always challenge myself. Like, if I don't like it, because you've heard me tell you this a bunch of times over the years, like if somebody has a character that's really complicated to draw and I don't like it, I will end up sticking that character in the background of every shot in the book, just because I'm going to challenge myself to be able to do it.
Right.
Or, like, I was really scared when I took on my first paying gig illustrating a whole book because it had so many female characters in it. And I had never really drawn a lot of ladies. Like, I could do it, but it usually took me a couple of passes to get it to look like a lady and not like a guy in drag. And because I just drew guys all the time, because like that's what my kids asked me to draw. Like you were asking for Spider-Man and stuff, and not asking for Wonder Woman that much. And good morning, sir. Glad you're here. And so, I was scared, like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But man, I stuck those ladies in the background of every shot. I put them in every shot they weren't even supposed to be in. And, by the end of that book, it was a whole lot easier. Next couple of books, like now I don't even think about it now. I'm just like, boom, there's ladies, there's hands, there's feet, don't even think twice about it because I've had to do it
Dude,
so
I will
much.
say my ability to draw hands has gotten like 1,000 times better just from the sheer amount of hands I've got to draw. Like, because every character has at least 2 hands, and I've definitely been getting some mileage in a lot of aspects that I've just by doing it I've seen my own because to do sequential work you gotta try and push yourself in those areas that you aren't necessarily as comfortable with or used to drawing with.
Hmm. Katie's had the same issue drawing women because they always end up too masculine. So I've been making myself draw more of them. Good job. That's what you gotta do. Um, Sarah says it's raining like a mofo and it's cold up here. I'd like to go back to bed. The 6-fingered man. Now, see, she's making fun of me because, like, I posted something on Facebook a little while ago about another 6-fingered hand I had drawn. And, like, the first time I caught myself doing that in a book, like, I'm being paid to draw, and something was just standing out and I couldn't figure it out. And then I counted and I put 6 fingers on this hand for some reason. And I was like, oh, that's funny. And I shared it on Facebook. And then, like, within the last month, I did it again. And that makes, like, in the last 5 years, at least 4 or 5 times I've caught myself doing that.
Right.
Which at first I was like, oh, that's really funny and a one-off. Now I'm like, I'm really wondering how many times I've published a 6-fingered hand and noticed.
That's fair.
Because, like, I can't believe I made that same mistake that many times. But, like, I used to have to think so hard about it, and now I kind of get into autopilot, and I've probably done it a few times now. I kind of want to go back through and try and find it. But that's difficult once you've started doing a lot of work.
Mhm.
Like, I put Colby in a comic one time, like, because, like you were saying with crowd scenes, it gets really, hard sometimes to draw a crowd.
Oh, you just gotta
when
think
you
of so
put a whole
many.
bunch of bodies,
Right.
and then you have to, like, put faces on them, and you don't want, like, the same generic face over and over again. So I started a long time ago just putting, like, you and Jay and Marcus and then Bree and people in the backgrounds that I see all the time, just to kind of mix it up. Like,
Right.
I've put you and your friends in the back of books before. Dad's been in a couple of books. I've been in a whole bunch of them. I'm usually, like, cowering in a corner from terrorists or something, and sometimes I'll put some of my friends in there too. But, like, when me and Colby started dating, she was like, well, you haven't put me in one. And so I used her as the inspiration for a little old lady, and I put her in the background of a book, and she made this cute little grandma with glasses and stuff. I cannot find that image to save my life. I have gone back through every page of every book I've illustrated over that first year we started dating. I cannot find it now. I don't know where it is. It's in there somewhere because I did it, but I don't know where it is. So now I've had to actively start sticking her in the backgrounds of stuff. Like, she's a fairy in Cthulhu Invades Neverland for the Peter Pan story that I just did. She's the only little fairy wearing glasses, but she's in there. She's like the size of your pinky nail. But
I'm not gonna lie.
let's see. Sarah says you're good at drawing hands when you accidentally judge me. All right. So you did have some questions about lettering. I remember you asking.
Yeah, I was
And-
like just like the formatting and like sizes and fonts that you were recommending for actually doing lettering, but 'cause obviously I want to make it readable and stuff when it like actually hits print.
I am going to. I want to find something that has dialogue in it, not just captions. Okay. All right, here's a page that I actually did on School of Fish. Oh, I forgot I'm not sharing my screen because we dropped out and came back in. Allow. And Shabon. Okay, here is a page that I actually drew on the show, and we were having a conversation about how the little background stuff, like, one little blurb of dialogue over the loudspeaker, or one background conversation or something can have a big impact on the story. And like Katie and Sarah were here, and we were talking about how that stuff happens as I was drawing this page, and we decided to throw in this dude picking a bug out of his hair, flaps, whatever they are, and eating it. And that little background thing that doesn't have anything to do with the story tells you a lot about these characters.
Right.
And so on the lettering, I'm gonna go here and click on it. I use Anime Ace 3 BB, which is I can get you the link for the font.
Okay.
This dude does fonts and stuff specifically for all kinds of graphic artists and stuff, but he's a comic book letterer as his main job.
Right.
And so he sells these fonts. He does some of them for free that you can download, like Anime Ace is one of those. And the nice thing about Anime Ace is, it's a nice, clear looking hand lettered font. It's easy to read, all of that stuff. But one of the nice things and one of the tricky pain in the butt things about it is, like, when you capitalize an I, it will give it the little crossbar I, which you only want to use when it's like I've, I'm, like, things like that. You don't want to use it on it and is and in the middle of sentences and stuff, because the crossbar really jumps out. It's more separating it as I am talking about myself, or something I've done, and then the rest of it does that. If you were using another program like Clip Studio, I think isn't set up for, like, Clip Studio doesn't have a spell check, which would be nice, which I think is probably part of the issue. But this font, Anime Ace 3, is supposed to automatically catch the crossbar eyes for you and only put them where they're supposed to be. But it doesn't do that in Clip Studio. It just puts it wherever there's a capital I. So if you import the dialogue, like, I tend to copy and paste it from the script, and because Clip Studio doesn't have a built-in spell checker, I will do it in like a Google document or something, so I can make sure everything is spelled correctly until you get to crazy alien names, and then I'll copy and paste it over into here. But when it's automatically capitalized an I at the beginning of a sentence or something, it'll be a crossbar I, even if the word is issue or intentionally or inbred or whatever. Those crossbar I's are the bane of my freaking existence. I spend more time in the editing going back. Like, I just got a message from my buddy Eric on the phone right before we started the show that was, I had sent him the new Fishtails book to look at, and he's like, yeah, you're going to want to go back over that inside front cover because it's just littered with crossbar I's. Damn it! I didn't look for that. But it's one nice feature about this Anime Ace font is that it does automatically have the variation, which is nice. You can tell this dude does this for a living. His fonts come out looking so good. I have been doing, like, in the Mighty Caw and everything that I've been working. And partly, I don't know if it's because I'm working at 600 DPI and I'm working at such high resolution on my files, that the 6-point font is what I'm using for size-wise. I don't know that would be different because the points are like an ancient form of measurement. Like, it's not like pixels, it's like from way back in the day with typesetting and, like, manual presses and stuff. So it shouldn't make a difference on that, but I've noticed on some things that I've lettered that were like really low resolution for whatever reason, the lettering seemed to come out really big. But at my 600 DPI files, like you're working at, um, I'm using 6 point on Anime Ace, and let me actually click on it. And the line space is set at 100 in between the lines, which is good. One of the things that I have really come to enjoy about Clip Studio Paint is, you know, like on the lettering tool here, you can go click the little wrench at the bottom and you can go into the settings and you can change. If you click the little eyeballs on here, you can add all of these different features that might not be listed naturally in your Clip Studio. You can go in here and change and add all these things to it, which can come in really handy. Like on font, naturally you want to know the size. Horizontal ratio, you absolutely want to turn on so that you can see it in your little panel over here, because that will change how wide that line is or whatever text you select, which comes in really handy when you're doing lettering like this. Like sometimes when you're trying to get the dialogue to fit right in a balloon, like, breaking it at the words might still leave a really weirdly shaped balloon, like a really weirdly shaped dialogue blob. And when I select like this line of this dialogue that fits so nicely inside this balloon, but when I select that line, I come over here to horizontal ratio, it's set at 113, which I don't normally go that far. I try to stick to like 10 points over or 10 points under so it doesn't look too stretched or squished. Every once in a while I'll go over like 110. But if I set this to 100, you can see like, that line was way shorter than the other lines around it. I don't have to change it. I could leave it the way it was, but it just looks better, and you can just inch it up bit by bit until you get to where, it looks good in that shape. And like sometimes there's like just no other way to break it. So like maybe making this line a little bit wider might be the way to go, and make this one a little bit narrower might be the way to go to make it fit in a balloon right. Or like where you have to break it might leave a word that's just too long to fit at the bottom of the balloon. And so like right here, that's down to 90. So I'll show you what that looked like at 100. See, if I have it at 100, then the edges of it are touching the balloon. And either I need to make the balloon way bigger and have a bunch of extra dead space around there, or I can go into the horizontal ratio and just drop it down until it fits nicely in there. And like I said, sticking between 90% and 110% of the normal font usually keeps it from being super, super obvious that you've stretched it. If you go over that, like, it can really be apparently stretched out. But that little tip right there of adding the horizontal ratio to what can be viewed in this panel. And all I had to do again is go to settings, go to font, and then come down to horizontal ratio and just turn the little eyeball on. And now it shows up over here. And I did the same thing with character spacing, and I also added line space on there. So like if I need to, separate out the space between the lettering, I can do that. Or if I need to drop it down, which every once in a while, especially when I'm doing sound effects, some of those really weird, cool-looking fonts might have real weird spacing in it. So, like, I'll select it, and either shrink it down so that it's closer together, or sometimes spread it out because they were put too close together.
Right.
And then, of course, line spacing is. Oops, do that. Line spacing is the spacing between the lines, and it basically works like if I select this one line, it'll affect the spacing below it, like where that is.
Mhm.
And so, like if I start dropping this down, that sentence below it will start coming up. Or you can select the whole thing and tighten it up. Like there are some fonts that I used to use where I would have the line spacing automatically set to like 120 because the font just naturally was so cramped on itself the way the creator made it that it didn't look good. But like I said, Anime Ace is made by a professional that I cannot remember his name to save my life at the moment. But he is a top-notch letterer, and I'm ashamed that I can't remember his name or the name of the website, and it's on the tip of my tongue. Lambot, that's it. Lambot fonts. He's an amazing letterer. It does some super cool fonts. I use several of them. I bought several of them too, so got the ability to use it. Let's see. Also, when it comes to lettering, I have been using when I'm doing the dialogue boxes there, the brush size on the outside of it is 7 points. It was what I've normally been using. And that one absolutely does matter on resolution because like occasionally when I'm working on something lower resolution for somebody else for some reason, and I use my standard setups that I have set up in here for everything, all of a sudden that border comes out really thick. And that's absolutely based on like the resolution as well. But I'm using 7 point. And the balloon tails, which again are largely based on the resolution, I usually have the width of the tail set to anywhere from 30 to 45. And and then you just click and drag from wherever and it'll make that balloon tail. And if you're close enough to a balloon, it will usually automatically just attach it to that one. Unless you have a lot of layers really close to each other, a lot of different layers of lettering, it might accidentally attach one to another that wasn't the one you wanted.
So I've got 3 questions since we're in this little part of the page.
Yeah.
Here, go to the left a little bit.
I'm working with 3 screens here, so sometimes finding where my mouse is and stuff.
No, you're good. So I was curious on, I mean, I'm sure one of them is just how to connect the word bubbles between each other. Like in that other panel. The second question is how to get the yellow behind like that one no.
Oh, okay.
The third is how you like varied the like orientation of the word crunch when he's eating the bug.
Okay.
That kind of semi-jumbled up. I don't know if that was just like a font or like specific settings.
That was a combination of things that I did, and I'll walk you through that too. Let me come over here to a clean page, because that's one thing that I did want to share with you as well when it came to lettering, because I just recently found this out like a year ago from like some other artist put up a series of Ed Foychuk from How to Draw Comics page. He put up some lessons on Gumroad, and I bought them not expecting to get a whole lot out of it, but like I figured it'd be good stuff to listen to, and there might be some points to pick up. That's where I picked up that horizontal size on the lettering, which just fundamentally changed my lettering and made it look so much better. And that's where I picked up this trick on lettering. So, like I have mine set to automatically go back. Like when I click on something, it's usually locked into Anime Ace. So let's say, okay, we're gonna do crunch as a sound effect. All right, and then it's also set at my normal lettering size, but we want to be bigger than that. So I'm going to enlarge that up a bit, and then I'm going to scroll through and look for a font that would be cool for that. We'll use Bada because that one's really easy. I'm going to make it white, and then I'm going to come down. I also turned on, I don't know if it was automatically on there or not, but I made sure it is, Edge, and then I set the color to black. I wish I could automatically set that to always be black. I haven't figured it out.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to up the line width of that. And I'm going to go ahead. When you have the whole word selected like this, you can stretch it any way you want.
Right.
When it's not highlighted, you can only like increase the size and rotate it normally.
I know that highlighting the word to edit it is like very important, because if it's not highlighted, it won't really affect that word. It'll just affect like, I think,
Yeah.
that word or whatever you type out.
And this is also some place where character spacing comes in handy, because like if you have it tight, then like all of that word is connected together, and the black outline and stuff doesn't, it looks cool. The white can come in and touch in places, and the black outline will be behind it, which sometimes is really cool for what you want to do. There's one trick that I didn't know about until very, very recently, watching somebody else's tutorial. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom to mode on the text dialog box, it's normally set to scale and rotate, which, like I said, when the word's not selected, all it will do is make it bigger and smaller, but
Right.
you can't change the ratio of it like you could when it was selected.
Mhm.
And you can rotate it, but that's it. But if you click on that, you can set it to just scale, just rotate, or you can scale, rotate, and skew. And now, if I grab these corner boxes in the middle, I can move it all around. It's not quite as free range as like free transform would be. Like I can't make this end smaller than the other end,
Right.
but I can move them around and skew them into any kind of angle, and it will keep it, relatively straight. But that's more functionality than I had in Clip Studio for a long time, because I didn't realize that box was down there at the bottom of the text dialog box.
Right.
But then another thing that Ed had showed me in his lessons was I'm going to go back and select the word, and then I'm going to come back to character spacing, and I'm going to increase that character spacing until they all become clearly, easily selectable different letters.
Right.
So the further I spread it out, the easier it makes the next parts I'm going to do. So that helps. All right, now another thing I always do at this point is I duplicate that layer and I turn off the first one. So if I ever need to go back to editable text again, I've got it before I change it and I can't go back. And then I'm going to rasterize this layer. So now it's no longer a font. Now it's just an image. But the fun stuff that I can do now is go in with my lasso select tool, and I can grab that particular one and I can like resize it and angle it and move it over here until it overlaps the next letter. Until I hit OK, I can move it around and do whatever I want. Once I hit OK, it pastes it down and it will be connected to that R, and I can't do that anymore. But
Right.
until I do, it's fine. So now I click OK, and now he's connected to it. If I try and move it again now, it's going to move everything in that selection, and I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
So I've got my selection tool set to add. So now all I got to do is grab that R, and then I can do the same thing again. I can rotate it a little bit. I can shrink it a little bit if I want that U to be like the strongest part. If I want the punch to be the strongest part of that, I might shrink down the beginning of it. Then click OK. And then grab this and I will rotate it a little bit and like stick it right there. And then I'll grab that part of it. And sometimes it takes a little thinking through, because if I want that to be the biggest part, I need to shrink down the other parts or make it bigger, or like it takes a little bit of thinking sometimes.
Right.
And I can move it around and then click OK, and then grab this and move it around. And I don't really love this, but the way this has come out, but you can see how it let me do some cool stuff with that I couldn't have done otherwise. And now if I go to freehand transform, like now I can change this and make it like fade off into the distance, or I can make it, get like really loud and obnoxious.
Hmm.
And then I can duplicate that layer and move this one over out of sync just a little bit, and then go back to that freehand transform and move this one out. And I'm going to go back to that lower layer and drop that opacity down a little bit and use it as like a reference for inking. And I'm even going to go ahead and make it blue, so that did not affect that layer the way I thought it would. Oh, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong layer. That's okay. There we go. I was on my inking layer. Whoops. And now I could come in with my pen and this is rough and quick, but now I could just quickly turn that into a three-dimensional crunch sound effect if I wanted to. And even without like taking it this extra level, like just being able to skew that and stuff after the fact, really helps with that. And a lot of times what I will also do is like I will just drop that down, and sometimes I will ink straight over the top of it and draw it out, which is what I did with that other crunch. I took an existing font and kind of tightened it up close to each other, and then I freehanded over it, which I'll show you how I did that real quick, and I'm just eyeballing that stuff. All right, so we got a crunch, and we'll do Barney White because why not? And we'll enlarge it a bit, and we'll make it white, and give it a black edge, just so it's a little bit easier for me to see those shapes and think about them that way. Click OK. I'm going to turn that blue and drop the transparency a little bit. And now I'm going to go in and just ink over it like I did for that crunch. And mostly I did it that way so that I could use the same pen and it would have the same look. Uh, Looking at the word crunch makes me want chocolate, says me.
About that.
And Sarah says 3D effects are a bit easier in Illustrator, but there's just a lot here that does much better. I'm torn. Oh yeah, like I could have got the 3D effect a little bit faster in, like, say, Corel Draw, but being able to do it all in here, and sometimes being able to make it all look like my artwork, like I'm going to do with this crunch, is worth the extra trouble. Like that's sometimes why I do it this way. So anyway, now I'm going to come in and, like, I can see what the letters look like, so I'm going to, like, copy it, but I'm going to do the same thing I normally do of having them overlap here and there. But now I'm just, like, using them as a rough guide to get the look, and that's exactly what I did for that crunch in the background.
Okay.
Especially because it was so small, and it wasn't like, it wasn't like a big skadoom that's taking up half the page.
Right.
And so it was a nice little thing to be able to do by hand and have it be in my handwriting. And that let me do all the little freehand stuff with it really quickly without having to go through the extra steps. But, like, if it's going to be a great big skadoom and I want it to be angled and twisted and stuff, then that's one way of doing it. I could have also, like, rasterized it and used the mesh transform and, like, stretched it out and stuff, which I do sometimes. But usually the less I do, the better. Like, I'll usually do one and then just hit free transform and just make, like, one end bigger than the other or something, so it looks like it's coming out at you. And that usually gives me all the effect that I really need on it. The lettering you were talking about with the connecting word balloons,
Is that the tool on there?
That's another thing I want to point out. So I'm going to just type a bunch of nonsense. Okay, and now if I come click, over here where I want the next one, and put those in there. I'm still trying to get this to work out like fit in a balloon. I obsessive. Now, sometimes if you have stuff set correctly and you click close enough to it, it will extend in this box. And so the next things that I type will all be connected together. But see, that one didn't click for some reason. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to click close by. It still didn't connect. So now I'm going to click over here. Still didn't connect. See, sometimes it just doesn't. I don't know what the threshold for it is to get them to connect or not. But so now I'm going to be throwing my balloons around them and, just drawing a balloon around the lettering will almost always grab onto that lettering that it's on. Every once in a while, it might hit a different layer, but not very often. And now I can come in and select the balloon and change the shape and tweak where the lettering is inside of that balloon and, get it to where I want. And so say I want his conversation going across like that across the screen. All right. Now I come in with my balloon tail and I went the wrong direction and boom, balloon tail's coming out. Then I'll come in with a square balloon and draw across, and it only connected to one of them. But that's okay. I'm not going to be hung up about it yet. When you click on it with the object select tool, now you get all the little nodes in it. And the corner nodes are a pain in the butt because there's 2 different nodes in the corner, and that sucks. But the nodes in the middle are the ones you want because you can just grab that and give it a nice gentle curve,
Okay.
and then like angle it and get it where you want. And then like Control C, click on this one, Control V, it pastes in the same place. Now I can move that same curve over. And sometimes I'll tend to switch them around a little bit so it looks like a more lyrical kind of move to it. And then copy and paste and put it over here to this one. And okay, see, because these two dialog boxes here were in the same layer, because like I got close enough and it connected them, it automatically connects those, but it doesn't the other ones. So what you can do is go to, whichever one's on top, which will usually be the last one that you did, and then hit merge with layer below in the layer menu right there, and it will combine it with the lettering in the other one. So boom, boom, I just connected all those balloons together into one lettering thing, one block, one layer. And so now all of that's connected. Now, if you want somebody else's conversation popping up in the middle of that, like say, I'm going to copy and paste that. If I hit paste right now while I'm on this same layer, it will just paste it into this same layer, and I'll have a double copy of it. And if no matter where I move it around, I'll show you.
Right.
All right, I pasted it, and no matter where I move that, it's keeping it there. And it didn't even do the whole thing. Okay, but now like if I go down and click on that vector layer below it, and now I paste it, it's pasting it as a whole new block of dialogue, and it's behind the other stuff. So I'm going to give it its own balloon. And then like if I want it to stay below, I could have them like talking over it, or I can move it above the other layer, and I could have him, if I like just touch it up here over those balloons, then it kind of looks like he broke into the conversation and is kind of talking over, and then Home Dude comes in, and and you could do that way. And and now like I copied and pasted again here, and now it's on the same layer again because I didn't move to a different layer. So it's just copying and pasting the same thing as if he's saying the same thing over and over again, which would be weird, but every once in a while you do it, or every once in a while it's just easier to do that and then change the dialogue. And so like if I wanted to have him continuously interrupting them there, I could do something like that and then drop down his balloon tail. And I could even come over here and grab this and hit Control C, then click on this one so I move layers, and hit Control V, and now this is in the same layer. And boom, I've got that there. Now, let's say he's really pissed off that Home Dude's trying to talk over. Now, I could just make another balloon, and I click down on that vector layer below it, and so it's making a new object. Every once in a while, it will just add it to a layer. It'll say, okay, you must have meant this, and it will just add it as another balloon part, and you won't see it. But now it's another layer. So I can drop it down, and sometimes it helps to make that balloon somewhere else so it doesn't connect to anything, and then move it down in the layers and then move it over. And then I can make the inside of it, that is not my color palette. Like yellow, make the outline red, and I will like really beef up the outline on that. And
Okay, cool.
and now I can make it as big or small as I want to and tweak it around. Sometimes it's even kind of cool to like slant it a little bit, off of the other. Just makes it feel a little more like chaotic, a little more, like, what are you doing? Sort of thing. And I could also, if I wanted to, come in with the balloon tails and like, come out of it. And I could adjust the settings on that. So like, let me make it, say, we'll go really crazy with it and make it 80. Let's see what that does. So like, you could do that and like really give it a bam kind of look to it. Something else I'll do is like, when I'm doing like dialogue boxes that are like coming over loudspeakers or their computer voices or something, a lot of times I might put them in a square box and then take the balloon tail tool and whoa, I meant to set that to 45, not 450. And then I will, like make a couple of little, sparks coming off of it. And you can even go in and it will cut it out, which is cool. And then sometimes I'll use the balloon pin for a line on those so I can give it a more jaggedy computer-like setting. And again, you can change the settings on those and I will like up the post correction and stuff, and so that my curves come out smoother and stuff like that. You can tweak with the setting, and you can go in here and add settings that you can see that might not be there now, like adjust by speed, post correction, stabilization. Definitely want to turn stabilization on that one because you can see the shakiness of my hand when I do those freehand balloons. You can see the tremor.
Oh, I have
the stabilization cuts that out.
A couple of my favorite brushes. I have like two versions of. One like normal, and then one with like really high stabilization. If I need to switch to them for like bigger, more like smooth lines that I need that are hard to just like actually get by hand. I've started doing that recently, and it's helped a lot.
Oh yeah, I started like when I found a brush that I liked. I've started even saving copies of that brush at different sizes. Like I used to use the G Pen for inking absolutely everything. So I made like 3 versions of the G Pen, and one was a really fine line, one was my regular inking, and one was my heavy duty one. And that just saved me from having to go back and change that setting all the time and having to worry about like go in to do something and I'm on the wrong setting. Or I even had one saved at like 50% transparency for when I was doing highlighting and stuff, and I wanted to add some of those little, bright spots. And it came in real handy for me to do that. Katie says, how do you decide which fonts to use? Now that is a doozy of a question. Like one of the reasons that I use Anime Ace is because it has become such a standard for so many other people in indie comics. Like, just like using Comic Sans is become universally a no-no and tacky and, makes your book look amateurish because, that's what moms use on their, signs for the sign up for the PTA and whatnot. Anime Ace has got a really good reputation and it just looks so clean. There's very rarely a time, it looks like it's hand drawn, but there's very rarely a time that I can't make out what a letter is. Um, very rarely. And I see people use other fonts that are like look like hand lettering and stuff, but if I can't tell the difference between an O and a D, then we're in trouble. Or if telling the difference between a P and a F is hard when the lettering is all kind of crammed together, then ideally the whole point of the lettering is to make this easy to read, and we want it to disappear. It can have such an impact when it's done right, but like the very best lettering on a book, you usually get to the end of the book and don't even realize that you were reading anything because it was so good you didn't notice it. Like you remember the characters talking, not reading the dialogue, And usually when I notice the lettering, it's because somebody did something wrong. And they either made it too small, which was too hard to read, or they, had really weird spacing, or it was really weird big balloons, or they had way too much conversation packed into one balloon, which is easy enough to fix. You can do things like this and take that one long conversation, like that one big dump of lore or whatever they're giving, and split that up into a couple of thoughts, and with some tales connecting it. Like you can have this be like a meandering thought and control the speed that we're reading it at by how you place it across the screen and stuff, and make it so much more interesting than just a big boom, here's a paragraph, read all this. Most people just skip on to the next thing and try and make out what happened, because that's long and crazy. And I've noticed I get better mileage out of a page sometimes, especially if it's a conversation heavy scene. Like in several scenes in Green Zone where there's a lot of conversation, I will put a lot of panels on the page and have, one or two of these balloons in each panel. And like somebody might say something, you might see somebody else's reaction, or maybe we cut to the next panel and you see the reaction. But it gives it more back and forth and more vibe than just like one big giant page and balloons tracking. Sometimes that is cool as a standout thing. That is not cool in an every page kind of thing or every book kind of thing. That gets really boring really fast. And people don't read it. Like there's pages of Spawn I still haven't read from back in the 90s because like every time I got to that page I was like, nah, and just went on to the next one because there's like 40 balloons on that page.
Oh, dude, you know that as much of a comic fan as I am, like there's a lot of times that if there's just too much, just like giant text blocks, I will do the same thing. I just won't read it. I mean, this is some awesome art. It looks really pretty, but no, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I feel you. I've been there too. So I was glad to find out you even started like actually reading books, because for the longest time you wouldn't read them.
Yeah, there was probably a good like 16 years where I would just look at the pictures, but I have actually started like slowing down to read them, which I'm better off because a lot of the stories are really cool.
Any other questions of anything that's been on your mind lately? There's a couple of things I'd like to show, but I'd rather answer questions.
There's something kind of small, but I was curious how you set up your color palette, because I've been wanting to do one for the book that I've been working on, so I like don't have to keep going back to older pages to select stuff. And like, I don't think it's that complicated. I just haven't spent the time to like figure out how to do it.
Let me find it. Because I keep saving it and resaving it. Here. Uh, and I could probably look it up online faster, honestly. But um, there was this old DC color chart that was floating around on the internet forever. That's um, that was the old color chart that they used to use. You know what? That's going to be easier for me to just look for it and find it. Anyway, there's this old DC color chart that showed like the process colors and stuff that they could use in DC back in the day, back in the 80s. And
I remember you talking to me about that like a couple years ago when you first found it and were trying to implement it in your books.
different. That's what. Okay, so that's the color chart. I found it on the internet much quicker than looking for it, and it has like scanned versions of the pages. It has the CMYK colors and then the RGB colors for it over here. And this is like all the colors that they had to use for the longest time in comics.
Right.
Which is why like you will see so many weird scenes where like the buildings in the background are orange and purple and things like that. They just seem weird. They only had so many colors to work with. And, you know, like if Super Dude's costume is red and blue, then yellow and orange in the background made a better contrast. So it doesn't matter if it was realistic. You know, it doesn't matter if all the buildings were gray. That didn't come across very well on the printing, especially in the old CMYK print runs, where like if you're printing just gray, you're printing just a half tone of one color. So if a bit of schmutz or something got in the print, a little bit of paper came off and got stuck to the roller, now there's just a big hole in that color on every single print because there's only the one color going. Whereas if it's a mix of four colors, then if there's a spot missing out of one of them, maybe that spot in the Hulk's skin color is a little bit out of hue, but it's not as bad as if it's gray and there's just a big hole. Or transversely a big blob of black, because maybe that paper was picking up ink and making a black stamp instead. It just was harder to do, which is why they changed him from being gray to green, because green was easier to print. So this is what we're doing, and I'm going to start a new one. Oh, there is a way. Create new set. Okay. I clicked on the little wrench, and then I'm going to create new set. And I'm going to call that set there, because we're talking and that'll help me remember what we're doing. All right. It's absolutely blank. So I'm going to come up to the top one, and then I am going to do the scheme. All right. I'm going to right click and get that color. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to right click and replace color. And then I'm going to right click on this one, get that color. I'm going to come down here, right click, replace color. And this is what I did to set up my initial palette. And I went all the way down through there. And then eventually, like, it was a good place to start from. It's a great place to start from. It's a great jumping off point for colors. Like, to have these places to start on the chart, especially if like you just don't know where you want to start on the color chart. And some of those color palettes are so huge and have so many variations of greens and browns and oranges and reds and pinks. It's overwhelming. And this starts you out with, like, I don't know, 120 colors or something. And it gives you a good place to start from. And then I can click on that color, go over to the color wheel and say, okay, that's where it is. But maybe I want to drop it down a little bit, and maybe I want to lighten it a little bit. Maybe this is the green that I'm going for. Now, if I find that I'm using that green a lot, I could come in here and go back to the palette, and I could replace that color with that. Now, let's say I find a color in between there that I also like to use a lot. If I right click on this one and say add color, it will add it right before. It'll add a block in before the one I clicked on.
Okay, I was gonna ask if you had like a set number of colors you could use, or if you were able to like continually add.
Yeah, that messes with me because like when I get to the end and I want to add more colors on, I always forget. But like if you're at the end, you can right click on it and like add a color, and it will add it before that last color. So like I keep like a block of black at the bottom so that I know that one I'm not using because I've already got black up here. And so I will click on that and then add color, and it will add my new colors into that. And I came up with a system for setting up my custom color palettes. Let me open something. All right, let me open this. I came up with a system for doing the custom color sets for characters, and I start from the top down just because that helps me remember what order the colors are in. And when I'm looking at a sea of what seem like random little strings of color, because after I got all my main color palette in, I realized like I was doing Steel Wolf all the time. I was doing 5-star all the time. I was doing the Sentinels all the time. And having to pull up old pages to color pick off of them to figure out what color I used was a pain in the butt. So I added them to my custom color palette, but I needed to come up with a way to do it that made sense that I could keep up with. So I figured I'll start from the top down. And so like since Kaw's wings are usually sticking up over his head and they're the same color as the feathers on his head, like I could right click that and then say we're coming down here to make our new color palette, and I can replace the color with that. And then as I'm coming down, we usually hit the shadow on his wings before we hit anything else. So the color after that, I make the shadow color for his wings, and which is also the color of his beak. And then, you know, then we have his skin color, and then we have the color of his scars usually, which is not this color, but it's a redder, darker version, oranger color of his skin. So we come over here and I throw that down. And then we color pick the gold, which all of this has had highlights and stuff added to it, which normally I wouldn't want to be color picking from, but it'll work for this example. And so when I'm looking down through all these examples and I see, you know, blue, dark blue, brown, okay, that's Kaw. And so I know that's his color link. And when I get to one that's like really dark gray and then a skin tone and then red and gold, I know that's Steel Wolf, and I use those colors. Katie says, that would have saved me so much time when I colored Finding D. I didn't know you could save separate palettes. Abso-freaking-lutely you can. And you can save palettes for individual books and stuff, which is awesome. Like if you wanted to, you can make as many of these custom palettes as you want to. And like my custom, I really probably need to change my custom palette that I work off of all the time, because I'm noticing like a whole lot of colors. I go to this color and then I pick, you know, down and to the left every single time. And I need to just add the variations of that tone in that I use all the time, and the variations of this tone and that one, and make a new custom palette and take out some of the characters that I'm not drawing every day anymore that are still in there taking up space. But then some of them, like the red for Steel Wolf's costume, I use all the freaking time. Like that's my go-to red for just about any costume because I like it. It's not too red. It's not like this red on his blood is a red. And so it's a little more toned down, but it looks good. and I have a good blue for capital punishment, and like I use that for a lot of things. But yeah,
Like,
you can make custom palettes for that, and oh, it is so choice. But like I said, the having this as a starting point did me so good. Like you could color old school if you wanted to and make it look just like it's an old comic book, but then it also gives you jumping off points to get to like that orange is a really orange. But if you go there and then you drop the saturation a little bit, you can get to some really nice oranges and some really good like ginger hair colors and stuff. Like it's really good.
it'd also be probably good for me to just set up like a couple different skin tones that I know are like realistic and work for different people, because skin tones are always so hard to just like randomly color pick.
Hold on a second. Your dog is being an idiot.
Yeah, it sounds like her.
Come on, stupid. Don't be all young. Must be rain coming because she's acting a fool. That or she can hear the monsoon at Katie's house in Scotland and she's freaking out. So now she's drilling on my toes, which is always fun. Yeah, that's what you want when you're doing your art stream.
I got a little kitty tucked away in this corner. He's sleeping.
If your toes aren't getting drooled on and chewed on by a cat, what are you really doing? Really?
Yeah.
Like, are you really living your life if you're not covered in dogs and cats?
He was trying to get my hand earlier, and I was like, boy, no, it's not the time.
But yeah, I had the same problem with skin tones because, and like, some of these skin tones are like very skin tone, because like it was being printed on newsprint paper and stuff, and like it's very bright and didn't really look right printed on high quality paper and stuff. So I fiddled around and made a string of skin tones, from light to dark, and they were okay when I started. Now I usually and this is another thing where I want to expand that palette and make it better, because I've got these like 6 tones that I used to use all the time. Now I use as a jumping off point. Like 5-star skin tone is in there, and his hair color is in there, and Steel Wolf skin tone is in there. But like, if I'm doing somebody like a ginger with red hair, then I've got to like lighten that down and make it fit better with that. I want to make more variation off of there, and there's dark skin tones that are redder or a little more yellow, or like there's more variation in there than my little string of skin colors has, and
Right.
so I want to fill that with a better range. And like if you're doing a crowd scene, if you're filling it full of 3 skin tones, that gets real boring real quick.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's why I've been, one of the reasons I've been looking into how to set up color palettes is so, I could set up a range from light to dark of, a good 5 to 10 different skin tones that, I can pull from or tweak here and there. But yeah, like that was one of the things with doing crowds, is trying to get them to not all like have the same skin tone or very similar skin tones.
Mm-hmm. Just a big sea of white going across the background. Yeah. Oh, I feel you. Absolutely. And and there's a lot of variation in it. Like I was trying to hit a handful of different skin tones that just came to me off the top of my head when I was setting that up, and it's a very limited band, but it works okay for a lot of things. But there's just a lot of variation when you're doing people from Latin America, or you're doing black people, or Hawaiians. Like those 5 colors aren't going to cover everybody, and and I've had to go way lighter for white people and go darker for white people than the white ones that I had, and it could use some updating from what I've got. But you can also copy and stuff, I believe, too. You can duplicate set. So like you can duplicate a set that you already have and then like change it and add to it and add colors in between and stuff, which is probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my standard set that I have now moved from computer to computer to computer, and it has worked really well for me for years. But I want to take it and jump off from it, you know.
Right.
And like, I have a little patch of different like shadow colors that I use on my multiply layers. Like I have a variety of purple tones and blue tones and brown tones that I use in the multiply layer for different shadows, and I use basically the same color for highlights unless it's like really extreme one way or another, and I want to add some more variation in there.
Right.
But you can absolutely save them, and you can export them. You can save them, you know, like on disk and have them, you know, in a backup drive somewhere. If everything comes crashing down, you've got it on that backup drive. That's good stuff to do. I try and remember a couple times a year to save all my custom brushes that I make. Sometimes I don't remember, but I try to, because like that stuff I don't want to lose, because some of them I've lost them before when I can, you know, I upgraded my computer and everything didn't come over on that brush and I lost it, and I was like, oh, I used that on everything.
Yeah. Another thing I'm curious about is how just like masking layers work at all.
Oh, okay.
It's like my typical like process when I go about coloring stuff is either I start by like blocking out the silhouette for like a character or something with like one single color, and then we'll either use a clipping layer on top of that to like add in individual colors, or just like lock the transparent pixels and then, you know, fill out things according to how they're supposed to go. But I feel like that's a very backwards and complicated way of doing it. Like I feel like I know masks are in theory supposed to be better. I just have never really gotten into it. I don't know how they be working.
Let's find something. I'm trying to think. There's something easy. Fish probably easy. Okay, we'll do this home, dude. All right, let's see. Okay, that's his shadow. All right, I'm gonna turn off all of this. Get rid of all of it. Okay, now we're just down to the black and white line art. And I'm gonna make that line art my reference layer. I'm going to delete all the rest of this stuff. I'm going to save it as a different file. So that I don't lose the original one, because I save so many copies of things. Like I save it as a pencil file, and then I resave it when I ink it, and then I resave it when I color it. Because like usually when I color something, most of the time, when I color something, I will like combine the ink layers and stuff into one thing and flatten things so that I don't have to fool with a whole bunch of ink layers. But maybe I want to be able to go back and grab that sword and pull it off and use it as a reference or something. Or I want to get the whole background that I drew in the background behind him before I mask that all. All right, now we've got that all dropped down to one thing. We've got it set as a reference layer. I'm going to set up a layer underneath it. And then like when I'm just like wanting to flat one character, I will come and select outside of him and try and make sure that, see, that was too much, but it'll be okay. I'm going to select outside of him. I'm going to invert the selection. I'm going to shrink that selection by like 2 pixels. So it will bring it in hopefully just behind the ink lines. And then I don't have the palette to pick from. So I'm gonna pick a medium gray and I'm just gonna block fill everything in. And that shows me if I missed anything like I did up here. And because that line wasn't filled in. So I'm gonna take my lasso fill tool and then I'm gonna come in and make sure that that's got. I'm gonna cut this out with transparency and make sure he's all filled. And then I'm gonna lock the transparency on that so that I can't go outside of it. And now I can start like just plunking in colors. And really what I would want to do most of the time would be to just like actually flat this first. I will do it a lot of times when I'm doing my own stuff and just flat it so I can get blocks of color to work from that are easy to select and just make my job easier down the line. And I'm going to come in with transparency and cut that out. And it doesn't matter what colors I pick, you know, just as long as they're easy for me to select later. And that little guy, and then I'm going to go lighter for that section. And then I'm going to go to a different color and start plunking in color for his armor. And doing all that stuff. I'm kind of wishing I hadn't got rid of my flat layer already, because then I could just jump ahead. But like, all right, and we'll go ahead and make his other hand the same color. And sometimes the lasso fill is just a better option, and a lot of times you're gonna have to go in with the lasso fill anyway, because like if we turn off the inks, you're gonna see all these little bits in here that didn't get got,
Right.
and you're gonna want those areas covered most of the time.
I'm not gonna lie, personally, I do the lasso fill more often, but I think that's just because I'm somewhat unfamiliar with the fill tool. I've been trying to use it more because I know it's slightly quicker. But again,
I do it a lot because it's just, it is, in the end, it's a little bit more efficient. It takes a little bit longer, but if I have to bucket fill it and go back with the lasso tool anyway, it's easier to just lasso fill it.
Right.
And,
yeah.
And if you're doing something like this, where I don't have to worry about I've got the transparency lock, so I don't have to worry about going outside of it. Then, like, say, if I pick a red for here, I could come in and lasso fill these things that are real close to that edge that I don't want to have to worry about trying to trace close to that edge again that I already did once. And then I can come in and get it the rest of the way with that. Because ideally, you don't want to have to go over the same lines twice if you can help. That's part of what flatting helps you do. You're not having to redraw all of these things over and over again. And that's why it saves us so much time using it. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to make that little section a brighter yellow. And now I'm going to come in and select that, no, not reference layer, selected layer, reset. I'm going to select that gray. Now you see all those little selections in there? That's stuff that didn't get captured before, so I'm going to come in with my orange, and I'm going to make sure that all of that is captured. I'm going to come in with this yellow and get all of those little bits and bobs. And then I'm going to come in with this green, and I'm going to get all of this. Now, it's also got all the gray of his body selected, so I want to be careful. I don't want to just come in here willy-nilly. But now if I deselect and I come back and I select the gray, most of those are gone. There's a few spots that I missed here or there. But so there we go. Like, we'll say we did the whole thing. I didn't, but we'll say that we did. Now I'm going to make that my reference layer, and I don't have it set up on here. And I'm going to make a new layer above that, and then I'm going to use my select color gamut. And that's another thing I wanted to show you. If you right click up here, you can go to command bar settings, and anything that is in these menus up here that you want to add, you can add to the menu up there. So like,
I've had to get somewhat familiar with that because my undo button keeps disappearing, which is incredibly important. So I've had to learn how to like re-add it to my.
So like, I went to select color gamut and hit add, and now it's up there. And I went to view and flip horizontal. No. It was flip horizontal. And I added that. So like, I can just click this button and flip my image. So I'll like pencil it one way and then just click that and flip it over and ink it. And then like any little issues like the eyes are out of place or something jump out at you, or the head's a little wonky, they just suddenly jump out when you flip it like that. But so like, I've added select color gamut because I use it all day long. So I want to put it where it's easy to get to. And I do not want it selecting 10 colors. You want it set to refer to multiple, and then you can set it here to the reference layer, and we set that color flats as our reference layer. So I can select on this, and it only selects the green of his hand. And then I can go in and make that whatever color I want. Like if I want his armor to be, like a blue steel kind of thing, then I can come over here, let's say, and plunk that in. And if I want to do other things with it, I forgot I don't have a color. Get my color menu back. Like if I wanted to put that in there, I can come in with the paint bucket tool. Whoops. I have to set my paint bucket to refer to all layers, and then it'll still look at the ink layers as to what's in there. And so I can come in here and plunk in all those little details, but I know I can't go out of that area because I'm still selected on that. Now, if I was flatting it, really, I would have wanted to flat out all these different pieces differently. But if I didn't, that's okay. Not the end of the world. And, plunk that in like that. What is up, Kyron, man? Man, yeah, you're in here only like an hour and a half after we got started, dude. And you need to get on your servants. They're behind on their game, man. It might be time to fire the staff or euthanize them or whatever it is the 1% does, and start over with a whole new staff, because I wouldn't put up with that. I wouldn't put up with that if that was me. That is one of the hottest young artists on the scene right now. That is Barely Art from Instagram and TikTok and Family Dinner fame around here. That is used to be my youngest son, now one of my middle sons.
Yeah. Fair.
Ever extending family, and he is working on a short story for me. Oh, see, okay, now here's a problem. All right, this is something I wanted to show you. I clicked off of the tool, then I come back to the paint bucket, and I just set it a second ago to refer to all layers, but it's not doing that because I locked the layer the last time I was using it,
Mm.
So it's always going to go back to how I had it set. No matter how I change it this time, when I go off of the tool and come back, it's going to be set to where I locked it. So I'm going to unlock it so it'll be where I left it. And now I set it to refer to multiple layers and select all layers. So now if I select over here on another tool, come back, it's still set there. Locking it is really handy for tools that, like lettering, that you always want to come back to that same standard starting place.
Yeah, I've been trying to do a similar thing with like a lot of my like brushes and inking. I'll like lock it at like a certain size so that like I know, that this brush will be yay wide, or has this amount of depth, so that like my brush work is somewhat consistent throughout the day.
Karen over here being nuts. Just waiting for the day bear to eat fish while fish try to swim.
For real. I think what's that joke every time our names are said like in tandem.
I don't even ever think about it, but other people do.
Yeah.
And now I can use the select color gamut, select his shoulder pads. I can right click that color and then just the whole fill all tool, which if I didn't have that selected, it would be bucket filling the whole page. But
Right.
because we've got that area selected, it's only filling that area. And then come in and now I'm going to select color gamut on those little parts there. And then I'm going to copy the color I put in his knuckles, and we're going to pop that in. And you can really quickly work your way through a piece, especially like when I get my pages flatted by Shane, everywhere his gauntlets are on the entire page are the same shade of green, let's say. So when I select them, it's selecting it all over the page, and I can bucket fill it, and now I've colored all of the page with that. That's kind of funny. I don't honestly even remember how he got the name. I don't remember if it was a lactation specialist in the hospital or something. Like, it came really early.
Dude, you're telling me I don't remember at all. I was vaping it.
It is not his legal name by 2 days. If we had 2 days longer before we took him home, his name would have been Elisha Bear Lee instead of Elijah James Daily to Go Tree Ezekiel Johansson Jebediah Lee. But if it wasn't for that 2 days, it would have been Bear, because it just became his name and it fit him. And knowing that, however much he might not have looked like me for like the first 10 years of his life, because his Grandpa Boskowitz genes are really freaking strong in the family, and all of the kids look exactly alike, all the grandkids. But now he's looking more and more like me. But I knew he was going to be built on my chassis, so he was going to grow up to be a giant. So Bear just fit perfectly, because and
it's worked well as a kid and as I've gotten older.
Yeah, and admittedly, when he was a kid, there was a moment there that he didn't like it, because like his mom would call him like Gummy Bear, as a sweet, loving nickname. And he's like, I don't want people calling me Gummy Bear. And I don't blame him. But I was like, dude, you need to think long term, because like you're going to be a giant like me. You need to be thinking Kodiak Bear, Polar Bear, like Grizzly Bear. Like, you're going to be a massive man when you grow up. And Bear is going to be a fitting name. And like, I realize now, like, I always wondered why people would be so intimidated by me, because like I'm not a mean guy anymore, and I'm a sweet dude now. I don't. Worst I do is get mad when they put cheese on my Burger King. Like, I'm not a mean dude, but people would still be afraid of me, and especially in public and strangers and stuff, or ladies taking off at the walking track because they're afraid I'm going to grab them up, thumb over my shoulder or something. I don't know. And it wasn't until Bear grew up and got to be like 16, 17, 18, and like we'd be walking next to each other, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, man, that's just a lot of man standing there, because like by this time he's my size, and big giant shoulders and this big massive dude. And like, I never really saw it from the outside until Bear grew up. And
I almost never
he's always
think about
bigger
just
than the other
like
kids.
how
But
physically large I am. Yeah.
yeah,
Like I
once
don't
he
think
grew
I'm any
up, it's like,
taller or anything than other people. Like I always just kind of like in my mind's eye see myself at eye level with them, but then like I think about the fact that I can like see the top of their heads all the time, and that most people can't really do that. It'd be catching me off guard.
yeah, I mean, like, I made my friend Conrad in college. Like, we recognized each other right off, and it took a minute to realize where we knew each other. But I recognized this dude like looking in the mirror. But I had never met him before. But I recognized him to such a degree that like it made me nauseous. It was like a flashback or something when I saw him, and it was a couple of days. And we early realized that we went to school together, but we did not hang out in the same crowds. We didn't know each other. And, you know, I hung out with the thugs and the druggies and stuff, and he hung out with the polite cowboys that stayed at home and, you know, helped their dads in the garage. Like, not the cowboys that were out drinking at night that I knew. And so, like, we took a while to figure out why we recognized each other until we realized we were head and shoulders above everybody else in school. So when we were walking around in school, his was the only head, the only face I could see above the sea ahead. So I just instinctively like learned his face without ever knowing who he was, and that's why I recognized him. And he's about my height, like you are. So we, like, I don't even realize, like you said, that I'm so much taller than everybody else until like, you know, until like me and Colby are standing next to each other or trying to take a picture together, and like I'm 15 inches taller than she is.
Yeah.
And, you know, or my back hurts and I have to bend over to give her a kiss goodbye or something. And then all of a sudden I remember what a difference it is.
Right.
Kyron says, at least you don't see inside everybody's noses like us short people do. Sidebar, people need to clean their nostrils more.
For real.
True. Yeah.
Perspective and all that.
Oh yeah. Like, it is true. It's something that I picked up on being stuck in a wheelchair for so many years. Like, you know, I never realized being nearly 6.5 feet in the air how nasty people are. But like rolling around in a wheelchair or a little cripple cart at Walmart and being butt level to everybody, really, a whole lot of people don't wash their butts. Like, it'd be funky out there at Walmart or at cons and stuff. TJ says, I'm exactly 6 feet tall. I can always tell when someone is lying about their height. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Man, I have had people swear up and down that I'm like 6'6", 6'7". I'm like, nah, dude, I'm like 6'4". It used to be and a half. Now it's like a quarter or something. Like, my back's giving way. But they're just convinced that I'm that much taller. And so many people have lied about their height and told them, like, yeah, I'm 6'4" when they're 6 feet tall. Then they see me and they're like, oh, this dude must be, 7 feet tall. No.
Yeah.
Guy's exactly 6 feet also when he stands on a chair. Like, I didn't know how big of a height difference there was between me and Tony Clapper until I went up north for FS Con the first time. And, like, we had to, like, angle some of those pictures right to be able to get in the frame with each other. Uh-oh. I got to the end of my coffee. That's bad. Well, we've been on here for over an hour and a half, even though the illustrious Kyron Silva is just now joining us. Is there anything else that you had a question on quickly before we get going? There's one other thing I wanted to show you about Mask before we get off of here. So let me go back over here. And I'm going to import an image. And I'm going to go to preferences and textures and paper. And all right, I'm going to select this scan of a Polaroid here. And Kyron is already going to say some crack about me being way too organized in this stuff. But, like, okay, we want to stick this Polaroid picture on here. And, you want to put somebody's face in it. All right?
Mm.
So now I'm going to import an image. And no, I don't want to give away too much about COD 2. That could... I don't want to give away too much here. Okay, let's say we want to do a Polaroid picture of this picture of Brooks that Lee Gaston did. And we want to stick it in that Polaroid, right? I'm going to turn it off for a second. I'm going to click on the Polaroid. I'm going to click on the selection tool. And, all right. The tolerance is set way too low, which is good when I'm selecting things for flatting, but not for this. Okay, so I turned it up so I can select that whole area inside there real easy. And now I'm going to turn this back on. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to layer mask, mask outside selection, and boom, it is cut off to fit inside of that picture. Now that mask is stagnant on the page. Like if I move the Polaroid around, the Polaroid will move, the mask will stay where it is. It's not connected to the Polaroid. Okay. But it's also not connected to this image of Brooks. So I can move him around in it, and I can, resize it if I want to show more of him. Rotate it, move it around until I find, just the right angle. I can zoom in on it. And this has come in real handy for a whole lot of things. Like when it comes to putting images on screens, it's real easy to select the area of that screen and then drop in an image of whatever. If it's another scene from the comic book that you already drew, if it's a picture from real life, whatever you're doing, and drop it in, mask off outside of that selection area of the screen, and then you can tweak that image however you want to and make that work. Let's see, you and Tony together, that's a lot of man art excellence there. Absolutely. Height doesn't matter when you got a big bank account like Kyron though. Oh, absolutely. How do you think he got such a hot wife, man? He didn't get that with just, looks and charisma. Gotta go. Catch you guys later. Thanks for hanging out, PJ, man. It was good to see you. But yeah, that has come in so handy to me. And like, I did a real similar thing just a few minutes ago on the inside front cover of the new Fishtails book. I have these little blurbs talking about, each one of the stories in there, and I have a little image from that. So what I ended up doing, and there's a number of different ways to go about it, but like say if I make a new folder here, all right, I can come in here, make a big selection box, all right, and then set my selection to negative so that I cut out of this so that all of these boxes line up. Now they're all equal, let's say. I can do that, and then I can layer mask outside layer, and now anything that I put in that folder will be masked off by that. So let me import another image here. All right, and now I can shrink that down and boom, put him right there as his little icon. And if I copy and paste him and hold shift, I can drag him down straight and just use him to fill up all of those boxes, or I could put in different images, whatever I wanted and all of these images are still manipulatable. I can still do whatever I want to them. Um, but you see how quickly that works. It works out really well for
Mhm.
more technical things and more like photo manipulation type stuff. And like one of the short stories in the Fishtails book is another, like, it's like another excerpt from the Green Zone source book. So it's all
Mhm.
set up like files. And so there's a lot of like surveillance photos and stuff in there of the character from the second and third book, El Demolition. And so I could just take images I've already drawn of him and then drop them in and mask around that image of the Polaroid. And then boom, he's automatically just dropped into all those Polaroids. Easy peasy. Good stuff. I really appreciate you being on with me, Bear. This was a lot of fun to have somebody to talk to about it and to be able to answer specific questions and not
Yeah.
just get sidetracked by the Kyrens of the world over there. Thank you very much, Kyron. No arguments about daylight savings time or anything.
Yeah.
And to actually focus on something. So thank you. I hope you will come on with me again sometime soon. Because
Of course, yeah. Other people to be posted. I mean, it just depends on like what that would be.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking about trying to move the show maybe later in the evening, so at least for the public one on Tuesdays, so that more people can get in from work and see it. I'm also going to try re-airing this one later tonight and hang out in the comment section and air it publicly this time for the people that aren't Patreon backers. But if you want to get in and back it on Patreon, you can be here live and join the conversation for as little as $3 a month. Well, for $5, you can get every digital comic that I put out, like The Mighty Call, The Cro-Magnon. And for everybody that is back at the digital or physical level, this next month, issue 2 of COG comes out. So at the beginning of November, I'm going to be shipping out issue 2. You got it at the physical tier, just $15. You can get it there. Or if you want to wait and not join the Patreon, you can pay more on Kickstarter, probably later in November. So, those are the options for you. Thank you for hanging out, Bear. I appreciate it. I'm going to roll us out of here, and I will see you later. Peace out.